Second.
On adoption, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And we have a delegation this evening. Dr. Bill Taves here to talk to us about the Cambridge Heights subdivision. And welcome, Dr. Taves, to the podium. And you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillors. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm coming to give an informational talk and just share information about a neighborhood that we're creating in the northeast portion of Comox. I'm Bill Taves, resident of Comox for 35 years. I bought this property 33 years ago in my 20s with the idea that I was going to someday retire, build a couple of cul-de-sacs and build houses on that when I retired and be this happy, industrious man. 35 years later, I'm still a happy, industrious man, but building a cul-de-sac and putting some houses on is a little more challenging. And so today, I have combined my efforts with my neighbor, Faya Katsu Kalata. They purchased their property at the same time I did, and they've held it for a long time. They're not developers, they're pharmacists. So we've got a dentist and a pharmacist and some nice property. This property was zoned R1 residential when we bought it, and it's maintained that residential zoning from day one. We looked at developing this property about 10 years ago, talked to Frank Denton with McElhaney at that time, and made some initial inquiries, and then decided that at that point we wouldn't go forward. We were just happy to leave it as it was. There was some other stuff happening. 7 years ago we got together with McElhaney and again decided that maybe we could make a proposal for a subdivision. We did initial design, a drawing. We came with the idea that we would get that moving, and then there were some obstacles came along, there was changes came along, and so our process was dropped back. 5 years ago we entrusted our work and our job to Bob at McElhaney Engineering to push our project to ahead full time. And so today we've come up with a proposal to build a neighborhood in northeast Comox. It's at the corner of Pritchard and Cambridge Road. It's highlighted in the green on our map there. And it's currently zoned R1 single family. But during this process we've been encouraged, and we think it's a good idea, to rezone it in the beginning to R3.2 single family secondary suite. We think that has an advantage for the neighborhood and for our community in the fact that it offers a diversity in our neighborhood and offers more opportunity for more families to live and be within our community. Our process has been challenging. We've had many delays, and it's been at times frustrating, and at times it's got us angry, and at times it's got people upset. And that hasn't been because of one person or one item. It's been because of changes in regulatory conditions. It's been in change because of changing environmental concerns and requirements. Also, we've had interjurisdictional infrastructure and planning issues. Now, that's a big word for me, but what that means is we've had regional district, we've had city court, we've had drainage issues and stuff, and everybody coming together. And so, over this 5-year period that we've actively been working on it, the town and the owners have worked through the challenges, and as a result we've got a neighborhood which I believe is on the leading edge of creative and sustainable design. And by that I'll explain that in a few minutes. This is a schematic of what we're wanting to create in our neighborhood, and I'll describe that a bit more in a few moments. Next slide, please. When we started in 2007, that was the design on the upper left. And at that time, that looked after all the requirements. We needed a border on the street, we needed a border against the ALR, we needed a little pond for retention, and we could basically nuke the site. Early design left us with 8,156 square meters of park. Now, during the 5 years, we've learned a lot and we've visited a lot. We visited with neighbors, we visited with ALR, we've visited with town staff, we've visited with people in our community. And through that, we've evolved to a plan that now shows us 26,980 square meters of park. That's been a large change, and at times there were struggles and an objection to it. But today, I'm very proud of what we've got, and I'm proud of our park. We've got a very large separation from and protection of the adjoining ALR. ALR joins us here at Farm. We've got nice walkways throughout our subdivision in the center. We've got a center park in the middle of ours. We've got a 15-meter setback against Pritchard, which will be left in a natural state. So we've really created a neighborhood with park within a park. The Northeast Woods of Comox is really special, and we're part of that. I'll just show you the next slide if we can. So our design features are basically pedestrian focused. We've got paths and parks created to link with the existing town walkways. We've done a ton of work and a ton of expense in designing a project that's going to have very low impacts stormwater management. In other words, we're going to be able to control our stormwater runoff within our site. We've got enhancement of the natural stormwater features that are there with vegetation and maintaining our natural canopy, including our trees and trails. Next one. We've got a traffic calming design, and so this is traffic calming design in the fact it's cul-de-sacs, it's circular, it's narrowing at the junctions of the intersections. It's designed to attract not only grandparents who could live in here, my adult children can live in here, my grandchildren who play and grow up in here. It's a multi-dimensional neighborhood with nearly 50% of those lots backing onto park or green space, which is literally unheard of in the residential development today. And that's why we're really proud of what we're doing. Now this process, we hear it in our community about people that are angry about how long it takes and all that. And yes, at times I was angry, but today I'm not angry at all, I'm just grateful. This process of dealing with environmental, dealing with drainage problems, dealing with stuff, has led to a program where, town has guided us, engineers have worked on it, and we've come up with a project that is a win for everybody. Basically, it's a more desirable neighborhood to live in, which makes it more marketable, which probably and may even make it more valuable. I'm not sure about that yet, but I'm hoping so. And Cambridge Heights is a neighborhood that now I'm proud to be involved in. When we first started, I didn't have my name attached to it. I basically was wanting to be a guy in the background and just take the trees down and don't tell anybody those were my trees. Today we're protecting our trees, we're protecting our paths, and we're making a neighborhood that I like to live in. Next slide. So basically, I'm suggesting that, I guess I should tell you that should back up a minute and say that the reason I came today was to give you this information, tell you what we've been doing, how we've listened to people, and how we've made our situation better, and not to sort of request things. All I'm saying is, if we have this information, from here on in, when you get an application that comes across your desk saying, we want to go from R.1 to R.3.2, you'll understand the reasoning behind that. Or if we come and we want to do, we're having a stormwater study proposed, you'll know why and what neighborhood that's going to create and why we're up to. So thank you for listening to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions I can. If I can't, there's a nice engineer who's working on the project here as well.
Thank you, Dr. Taves. Any questions from members of council this time? Go ahead, Councilor Arnott, and then Grant.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It looks nice on paper, and just wondering where you are right now and where you plan to go. What kind of roadblocks do you see? What is it that the town could perhaps do to help move this along to make this, a meaningful type of neighborhood that doesn't take forever to get developed?
I'll try and answer from what I know, and if that's not adequate, obviously Bob, the engineer, could do that. But from my experience and from my involvement, I think the town has been helpful in giving resources to the project. In other words, town staff and town engineers, town parks, the people that look after our vegetation, they've all been in consultation and helped support the project. What we really need is continued resources of the town, meaning staff time committed to the project and to the zoning application, to the PLR application. We need town staff to do that. It certainly would help us if it was done concurrently instead of everything running out in a long trail. If we could do some of this process together, and I I would hope that the PLR and rezoning application could be done concurrently. There's a phase 3 phase 3 study of the stormwater. That's a project that needs to be wrapped up, and I'm told staff and engineers are working on that. If that's coming together and the way things look today, we're hopeful of building in the spring of this year, starting our first phase of the project. And to me, it looks doable. Is there any?
I don't know if our planner wishes to comment on where we're at.
We have a subdivision application and rezoning application. We have council authority to process them concurrently. The phase 2 of the study is wrapping up, and phase 3 is starting. Phase 3 is, to back up, phase 1 was exactly how much water, how's it coming onto the property, and where is it currently going, which was critical in terms of trying to ensure, well, we're trying to ensure that post meets pre. We often hear in terms of post-development flows meeting pre-development flows. Phase 2 was taking the current situation and what happens when it develops, how much additional water would occur, at what times, what different mechanisms are available to then deal with that water in terms of return to ground, so exfiltration, under the very tricky issue of not adding more and not adding less. And then dealing with any increased surface flows such that we do not increase the flooding risk in Queens Ditch. And now phase 3 is going to take a look at those multiple options in terms of features and address what the maintenance costs are going to be and training costs on those items, and then apply them in terms of what is acceptable in that area. That will also be coming back forward to council in terms of, again, what are the requirements, different or increased requirements for stormwater management from the town's perspective.
So knowing that it's not totally within the town's control, there's obviously an engineer working on this. Any idea of the estimate for a time to bring this back to council?
I think that the engineer would have a better understanding of, in terms of the resources right now, as of today's date, with our other projects and everything else like that, we have the ability to devote the resources to processing those applications and processing them concurrently.
Okay.
We're just waiting in terms of the green light to start that processing,
Okay.
that the information at least comes to council as to costs and maintenance.
Yeah.
And the council is comfortable with that prior to having the actual applications come before you.
So from that, I would surmise, all things going well, in the next couple of months, we'd see some.
We are anticipating wrapping up the project in the 2015 period, yes.
Whether it's spring, I guess, is the question.
That will be dependent upon the information and things like modeling.
Okay.
There's computer modeling that has to be done.
All right.
But Bob may wish to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. We're hoping to provide the sort of intermediate information that Marvin is looking for, the costs and the information that council is going to need to make a decision. And we're expecting that's going to be done in the next few weeks.
Okay.
And the process, there's a public component that takes time, and that's going to follow behind that. But once that information is received, we're hoping the applications can be processed.
All right, we'll continue on with the collaborative process. Councillor, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just more interested in the timeframe, so we've just discussed that, but I think I've been around since the very beginning of this, and I can say even from my point of view and from your guys, it has been really frustrating. It's been frustrating for staff too, but I think we were actually breaking some new ground here, and everybody was learning, and I think our staff has said as much as they would probably do it differently next time, knowing what they know now. But I think at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. This looks like a really nice project, and single-family lots is something that we haven't seen any of in our town for a long time. So I think there's a real need out there for the product. So I'm just glad to see us moving towards the end of this. So thanks for sticking with it.
Any other questions, Councillor Price?
Yes, it's been great, and I'm really pleased to hear you've done all the talking to people, and it may seem long and laborious, but it pays off in the long run. I think when people come and say, great project, and we want to support it. Just a couple of little things. The Northeast Woods, and it's, you've got a fabulous location there. It's done better. And just to point out, most of it's owned by the province, and to keep the province happy, they don't like it being called a park. It is a wildlife management area, called a wildlife reserve. Just how people use it. And they actually, although they would never say no to bikes in there, they would never say yes to bikes either. They will sit on the fence, but in their wildlife management areas, they have a no bike policy, although people bike in there and they never stop them. So maybe on the promotional material, it might be just nicer to have a couple of walkers rather than cyclists. I noticed. Just as a
Respectful of their rules and regulations, certainly we can adjust that.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons that protected in the long run because of being a wildlife management area. I was just curious too that the map, where the map is from and the trails.
That came from McElhaney's engineering department. And what I'm most proud of is the fact that we have this interconnectivity, and if we'd gone in and done our first proposal, it wouldn't have looked like it was interconnected. And today with our, like we said, almost 27,000 square meters of park in our little space, it's incredible. And so that's what I think is our biggest credit to our project.
Yeah, it looks good. And the fact that you're keeping a good buffer along the roadside, those would be the existing trees within that buffer. Will there be any of the existing trees in the remaining area?
Yes, in fact, as far as I understand, we have to maintain 25% of existing canopy, or we support that existing canopy. So our goal is to maintain as much as possible, and that's why if you look, our park and our buffer between the ALR and stuff is so extensive, because there will be minimal interruption in that area. So, again, I don't take credit for that. That's engineering and town staff's guidance that's created that.
Well, it was a difficult job you took on, and it got more and more difficult as you went along. But hopefully it will be a showpiece on showing new ways to deal with stormwater.
That's where I think ours is. And as we just mentioned, it's been a frustrating long process, but leading edge is that way. Unfortunately, we're the first people to do it, so there's more to be done. But in the end, I think people are going to copy this type of design, and this type of result is going to prove itself to be effective. And I think other communities and other neighborhoods are certainly going to want to have this kind of architecture design again.
Well, I think we'll have tours. Sure. So, will it be the town that maintains the structure, the stormwater infrastructure? Do you know that yet, or?
I couldn't answer that. All I know is that the ponds, etc., are going to be our holding area for most of storm management, and there will be cistern systems under the roads. But I'd have to defer that question to Bob or somebody like that.
Sure. So the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
Mostly yes. The intent is to design a system that is under the control of the town, so that the town is able to ensure that it continues to work in perpetuity. And over time, the intent is to try to transition some of that ownership to private residents, provided it can be demonstrated that they will maintain that infrastructure at the same level that the town would maintain it, so that it functions in perpetuity. The concern is that with lack of maintenance, these sorts of systems fail over time. That's going to knock on them since they've started being used. So the only way around that is to ensure that the town, at least initially, has total control over it. So everything is all of the stormwater features that are being proposed are within municipal rights of way or park areas underground. And in the future, that may change, but that's down the road. That's an evolution that it's going to take years to play out.
I mean, it does seem wise is for longevity, the calm maintenance, because failure is not acceptable for any of us because of the liability of.
And there's
Downstream.
maintenance that's required with your existing stormwater system. You know, pipes are flushed, cap basins are cleaned out, ponds are maintained, mowed, dredged. All of these things happen. It's very similar. There's some new elements, and that's what phase 3 is laying out is how we're going to maintain those new elements and what the costs associated with that will be.
Great.
Yeah, and just a couple points there. One is that staff did bring some preliminary information of that. It will be a shared responsibility between landowners and the town. So that's the challenge we're going to face. Second thing is that not all of the area is wildlife management area that you referenced. There's actually areas outside the wildlife
Right, yeah,
management.
the
that-
majority is good, yes.
and you're not going to stop people from cycling in there
No.
by any stretch. So I think that's something we should probably not be too hard on. In any event, Councilor McKenna?
Yeah, just a comment and a compliment. It's nice to see that secondary streets are being considered as part of the application. And compliment to the planners for resolving the applications.
Thank you. We found that was really important. And our price point isn't all for people with megabucks. It's price pointed for young families, people that want to live near their commute to work, where they could walk to the base or the airport. It's designed so that there's a wide range of availability and accessibility to the neighborhood. So it's all inclusive, and that's most important in my opinion.
All right, any further questions from members of council this time? Seeing none, thank you, Dr. Taves, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your questions.
All right, we'll just give a moment here for the room to clear for those who are leaving. All right, so we'll move on to approval of the regular council meeting minutes of January 21st.
Move. Second.
On approval, all those in favor? Motion's carried. We have the management report at page 17 for receipt. Move. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Any questions or comments on the manager's report? Councilor Foote?
I'm just wondering, with the newspaper article identifying the tree school going up to Cumberland now,
Yes.
is that altering the proposal? Any sort of way
Well,
that'll, delaying it coming before us? Or
I don't think it's factoring in too much to our staff report, but I'll let our CEO speak to that.
No, it isn't factoring in that much. We are halfway through the preparation of the report, and although it'll be mentioned, I don't think it was a significant factor in the overall plan that the Maclean Society had put forward.
So we can hope to see, we'll see that in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so seeing nothing further, then we'll carry on with the bylaws that we have tonight. We have two for adoption. First one is the water rates bylaw 1797.
Move. Second.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. And the sewer rates bylaw 1798 for adoption.
Move.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion's carried. The water and sewer rates are set then, starting from March 1st. We have a report under new business from our Director of Finance regarding the MTR contract renewal. So a motion to receive that would be in order first.
Move. Second.
Receipt, all those in favor? Motion's carried. CAO, how do you wish to proceed? Is there any formal presentation on this other than the report, or is this, what we did?
Yeah, at this stage it is. From a staff perspective, we're generally pleased with the level of service that we've been receiving from Emterra. The City of Courtenay is also using Emterra as a contractor and have signed on for a similar length of time. Getting good value at this stage, and we're recommending continuing.
Okay.
The only issue or the wrench in the plan that we may have to address in the near future is the MMBC and recycling and how we deal with that, but we'll deal with that at financial planning.
Yeah, hoping to bump into somebody perhaps as early as next week down in Victoria around that issue. So I know you're following up the staff office. Still waiting to hear. Interesting to note that Cumberland renewed for 3 years with MMBC, so I'm not sure quite why they issue a contract when that's such a concern, but I guess we'll find out. Yes, Councilor Kennedy.
It sounds like in uncertainty still, NPL's agreed to allow us to negotiate withdrawals, which is really the question. Until I read that, we're going to be able to get all the long-term contracts, so that is that takes care of that business, I suppose.
Any other questions, Councilor Arnott?
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive report. Just the last paragraph there, renewal without tender, just make sure that we are being very transparent, that there's not any other companies working in the background that is going to be upset that we didn't go with a tender on this, and we've looked at that as kids.
I'll see you.
I can't confirm whether there are not other companies. Garbage is getting to be big business nowadays. We had a discussion at one point of looking at going out to tender collectively, and when I say that, I mean not only just Courtenay, Comox, Cumberland, but also including Campbell River. And what had happened over time is that Campbell River renewed on their own, Courtenay renewed, and so the ability to get good value for the dollar over a larger contract didn't come to fruition this time around. It doesn't preclude us from doing that next time, but it will, I think all our contracts now are at the stage that they're lining up for expiration at the same time, which would make it easier for us to do that in the future.
Right. And then I'm guessing this is still a lot cheaper than if we were to have our own people do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
One question I had was related to the trend in many other communities to move towards recycling every week and garbage picked up every 2 weeks. Does this contract preclude that opportunity, or is that something that could be still discussed in 5 years?
It does not preclude it. We have had preliminary discussions with the contractor about this, and we've put them on notice that we are interested in investigating it further. From a cost perspective, it would be minimal, I believe, because we're changing the stuff they're picking up, but the frequency of pickups are about the same. We're just, if we go to garbage every 2 weeks and recycling and organics every week, it's still the same amount of trips. We could be saving actually some money because our tipping fees for garbage could be going down.
I didn't realize, for example, that recycling happened 1 week in Comox and the next week in Courtenay. Obviously, if we did the change to garbage every 2 weeks, that's something we want to talk to Courtenay about.
Yes, and of course they're not on the organics collection cycle yet either, so that's another hurdle we would have to overcome.
Any other questions for staff on this report? We do have a recommendation, other than receiving it, of course, for authorizing renewal of this contract for additional 5 years on the terms as indicated.
I'll move that. Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Hopefully we'll find out more about MMBC soon. All right, Councilor Arnott had brought us a notice of motion, which is produced at page 29 of your agenda. And I know we spoke to it briefly, but I'll let him speak to it now.
Yeah, thank you. As I outlined in the notice of motion, that I've noticed a need, a desire down at in the park area for a greater food service. I remember years ago we allowed the food vendors to go down there, and we had a vacancy because of Spanky's Fish and Chips was no longer there. I believe the one trailer that we've had there has proved itself a great success. what I would like to do is just to build on that success and being mindful that we're coming into maybe some kind of redevelopment down at the marina, but using 5 parking spaces to have a type of food court area, whether it's a trailer or food trucks. Food trucks are really becoming an important service in some communities, and I think this would make us a nice little gathering place. We see that as Cumberland outlined, the third place, this could be a place where people could go down there, have a meal. I've gone down, I've talked to some people wandering around on a few different occasions. People like the idea. I look at the moving the 5 parking spaces over a little bit. It would still be very accessible to the marina, and I just hope people can see that this is perhaps the beginning, the first step into a real vitalization and making something happen. And lastly, I don't see it costing very much money. There's no change in infrastructure. I believe any food vendors that come down to that area would provide their own seating. I think it's just a matter of a couple curbs or some kind of a blockade of that area to make it safe so people can go down and have a bite to eat and look at the marina, look at the mountains, and look at the ocean.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Before we get to any discussion on the motion, are there questions or comments that the rest of council would like to make?
Yeah, and thank you for the work you've done. And with regard to loading and unloading, and as a marina user, do you see any problem with taking away those 5 parking spots and the loading and unloading situation?
I don't. As I've outlined in the my little description there, you know, we could move the garbage and the loading the zones over a little bit. We're still quite a bit closer than even Comox Valley Marina users would have to park quite a ways out. We're still a lot closer than that, and you know, it's a little bit of give and take down there.
Councillor Margaret and Ken.
I like the idea, Russ. We all want to see more things happening down there, and this is worthy of consideration. But there's one thing that is bothering me. Given the emotion that we saw with the delegation at our last council meeting, I wonder if this taking away of the 5 parking spaces actually flies in the face of the kind of emotion that they're feeling. One, they feel they're being charged excessively or their fees, and then to take parking spaces away as well, what kind of a message are we giving to the voting community?
Well, first of all, we're moving the parking spaces over a little bit to the side.
Will we still retain the 5? Excuse me?
The 5 will be there, but you won't be parking. They'll be parking a trailer or a food truck of some sort there. But I think we have to. I have to say, as a tenant down there, though, I don't believe that the parking spots are mine. The boaters pay for a spot to put their boat. The parking spots are the communities. They're not just the boaters down there. And so this is just taking a piece of the park and bringing more people down into it. And really what I'm trying to do is honestly put a first step towards vitalization of our downtown. And I'm hoping that this could be an area that some food vendors could turn into a neat little spot and then have some spin-offs. We don't know unless we try.
Right, thank you. Councillor Grant and McKenna.
Yeah, are the food vendors that go down there are temporary, are they not?
Yes.
And therefore they have to move like they can only be down there for X number of days at a time, and then they have to move. So if you blockade them, they have to be able to get out to move their trailers. Am I correct in that?
Let's see how it's worked with the fish and chip truck.
I believe the fish and chip truck has located there for the better part of the summer last year. And
They'll leave every night, right?
moved out at the end of the summer. And then they just locked it up.
Well, I know, because we had the other fish and chip guy down here.
Or the big trailer, yeah.
With the big trailer, he had to constantly move it, because he was only allowed to be there for a certain number of days at a time.
I think
So
that
don't
was
know
his
what-
choice. He's working at other events and festivals.
Could be.
Exactly, that's what it was. He was going to all sorts of festivals. The little green trailer that's there, you see the picture, I believe the only time that has left in the summer was, and I might be wrong, but maybe it was nautical days that they moved it to allow different trucks to go in there. But, you know, these, I put down curbs. They could be a wooden barricade, you know, something like that, that could easily be lifted up and moved and let a truck come through.
So the other thing was that Al had mentioned that he was looking at possibly moving the food services over because of complaints he had about the parking and putting it in a different location. Of course, he didn't expand upon that, so we don't know what he had in mind there. So
Yeah.
that would be good to know too, because if we could kill two birds with one stone here, it might be a better thing to do.
Certainly, we could ask for a staff report, and that would be an option.
Yeah.
So, I guess the other concern, anytime you deal with food services in that area, even on a temporary basis, is concerns that members of the BIA and the restaurant industry may have, and that's always a challenge. Councilor McKinnon, of course, is their liaison with that group. But, you know, that's, I understand what you're trying to do. You're not trying to create a restaurant down there. You're trying to
No, just trying to create an environment that we keep talking about, of making the marina a destination and revitalizing, and it starts with one step, and I honestly believe that this is one step.
Now, one other practical concern is, as you know, we have an application to ICT that's coming up on February 20th. Assuming that's approved, which from all indications it will be, then it's got to go to Western Economic Diversification, which is about a 6-month process, so that would take us into August. So in all likelihood, whatever happens on that project will start this year, and I guess what you're suggesting at this point, we just try it for a year, essentially.
Yeah, and that's what I put down in the recommended motion for the summer season of 2015.
Okay.
So,
Any further questions, Councilor Grant, then?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm-
I had a man there.
Okay. Go ahead, Swift. Councilor Swift.
I like the idea of creating some more vibrancy down there, and food trucks are certainly a good way to do that. I'm just wondering whether the focus should be more in the park rather than in the parking lot, and then it would enable the parking to remain, and, you know, that park is rather underutilized, in my opinion. So that's number one. The other one is, I just have a, do you know of any food trucks that are interested in, have you spoken with anybody?
No, I haven't, but I would imagine staff would know if people have put some interest to come into this.
Yeah, we've had different inquiries over the years from, you know, we had a coffee trailer, we had a bigger food truck, we also had
hot dog guy down
fish
there.
tacos and hot dogs, and we've had various in Sunday, and of course during the festivals, you see all sorts of them, both at Philbrook Park as well as Lockley. So it would depend, and I guess that's always a question around gray water issues and electrical issues, which are a bit of a challenge down there too. So how much we could take on would be a good question. The more self-contained the better.
I believe that the trailer that is there now is self-contained.
Whether do they hook in all into any electrical?
I believe they may hook up into our electrical. There's a stanchion in behind their trailer.
Yeah, because they do have freezers there, I noticed on occasion. Any other questions, Councilor Kim?
Yes, thank you. I like the idea of the concept very much. I'm wondering if it would be in order, though not to create work for staff, but whether we should have a staff report talking about the protocols and the logistics involved with this. The protocols for a food vendor to go down there, we're asking questions here around the table, and we don't have that information all in front of us. The logistics for things like the number of vendors, where would be the limit and the seating area and capacity, and suggestions or a plan back that might incorporate some of the park, perhaps?
Well, certainly it would be in order if council wishes to refer the matter for the staff report on the subject that's been brought forward.
And including the report from the parks as well.
Well, that would be staff,
Yeah.
yes. Staff would be an inclusive process.
Well, and I recall it because we have tried this in the past, and we did do this, and we did experienced some problem with getting vendors because they just weren't making much money down there. Was one of the issues that we came when we tried this before, so.
And I think the difference here is a
Yeah.
particular site's been identified, and, you know, a proposal to perhaps on a temporary basis convert private parking spaces creates perhaps other issues as well. But if council wishes, something you may want to make a motion to ask for staff.
Well, and I'll just speak one last thing to it, is that the reason for a report is that if our grant, you know, we're looking forward to hearing about our grant for the marina revitalization. There's no guarantees there, so we'll have the report here as a backup and ready to go. I think that would be appropriate as well.
Yeah, I just, you know, I see reports, we get consultants' reports, we see reports on this, we see reports on that, and for many years I've seen the need, the desire, the wants of some changes down there,
Sure.
and I haven't seen them, and, you know, I'm just trying to be proactive, and I have put a lot of thought into this, I have talked to a lot of people, and I do believe as a user down there that this is desired. I don't believe that it's impacting the parking negatively, because it's not very often that parking lot is full. And
No, fair enough. I don't disagree with the efforts you put into it. I think there are some staff-related issues we need to hear from our parks manager, and making sure that if we do this, the infrastructure is appropriate, and whether there's any other concerns around that application, which I suspect for the summer season 2015 isn't the case. But you know, the other thing I guess overall you got to be concerned about is if you create this and it's a huge success, it's great. But then if our project proceeds, then you're going to create some issues around, you know, getting people out of there to make that project happen.
yeah, but as I've outlined, it's clearly states for the summer.
Oh, I know, but you get people in there and they made a great amount of money, they're going to say they have vested rights like the fish and chip
Yeah,
truck
you
doesn't
know, we
pay
need some
anything.
success stories down there. and
Yes.
I think that could be one of those. Thank you.
In answer to Councillor Ernesto, I'm asking for a staff report the next meeting, not a consultant's report,
Yeah.
which is long-term, with the intent of possible movement on this quickly. So,
Yeah, just,
Well, I just
go
want
ahead,
to
Councillor
just
Swift.
make a comment that I would hate for the staff to spend a lot of time on developing a report and then have no trucks that are interested in going down there. So I think it's a great idea. I think the public thinks it's a great idea, but if you're the person that's making food and has the truck and you don't want to be there, you've kind of gone around in a circle. So I think it's
That's hard
worth
to tell.
pursuing in a small way and see what happens.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say, I think this is in a small way, and if we don't have any vendors applying to be down here, which I would be surprised, but if we don't, we wouldn't enact it.
Exactly.
Because it's just a few barriers. And I must admit, in the summer I did sit down there and had some wonderful fish and chip, and I did think how nice it would be if the trucks weren't parked there and I could actually look at the marina, and one of them was running its engine the whole time it was sitting there, and it just seems like a really quick fix and a try, and so, you know, it seems
But
like
don't forget,
Big
there are other
one.
places that you can go sit that
Yes.
are actually existing picnic tables and viewing platforms. You don't necessarily have to sit on the tables that they provide.
and it is nice, you know.
Well, sure, but I'm saying if you walk 20 feet, we already have existing places. So, I
Yes.
mean, you know, sitting on asphalt, to me, is one thing, sitting on the park or out on the platform is another. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but whatever we do here has got to be sensitive to the use of that facility by others and to the infrastructure that's there and whatever impact it may have on our application. I don't disagree, but, you know, we could also accomplish it in another way, perhaps, but we'll see. So, a motion to get a staff report, I think, is what's, would you move that, Mr.?
Yes.
Okay.
Second?
Seconded? Okay, any further discussion on that? CEO, timeframe for that, given your other...
If Councillor McKinnon is looking for input from the Parks Director, then this is at least a month away as he's on his overseas vacation.
All right, well, it is February, and that'll be March.
That's still plenty of time. I mean, That's when we're going to start to.
But information can come back in regards to logistics of what a vendor has to do to apply and to.
Well, I think the staff report would have to be, without engaging consultants, it have to be as comprehensive as possible. We don't want to take it in dribs and drabs.
We'll do our best to, I mean, we'll start a report and we'll see what holes there are in it. And if we need to wait a little bit longer, then we'll wait and bring it up.
It wouldn't come to us next week. It might come to us in not the next council meeting, but the following committee of the whole, perhaps. But I'm suggesting, I think based on what the staff are telling us, it's going to be a mid-March, early March report.
We have to also be mindful that if there are going to be food trucks, vendors that want to use this, they're going to be lining up right now for wherever they go. So if we're a month and a half away, we might lose them because of that. You know, we need to show that this is something that we're interested in, and hopefully hold on to them, because then maybe they'll go somewhere else and we just won't get anything.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's always that risk, but I haven't heard of a lot of food vendors clamoring at the gates, so to speak, whether here, Courtney, or wherever. It's a tough business. It's going to be seasonal by its nature, and it's one thing to do it in Vancouver or Victoria with a much larger population. It's worth a shot here, but we have to see whether it works and whether there's a demand for it.
Well, and just on a side note, I'd like you to find out from the BIA, they've had concerns about this in the past, not great ones, but just good to make sure that they at least know or are apprised of it. So.
All right, so motion for a staff report anticipated in early to mid-March. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Councillor Arnott and Council for having that discussion. All right, correspondence. We are at page 33, and the first is to receive a letter from Wendy Frothville.
Move receipt.
Second?
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. So, yes, Councillor Price?
Yes, I think she's suggesting for Alice Comox Avenue, the traffic hub. Have we ever tried them? What do they call the Courtney have been quite successful.
Traffic calming, that's for traffic coming off Comox Ave down the hill around the corner. And that is a suggested route for people to reach the marina. And so I can't see us putting I'm not a traffic engineer, but I can't see us putting anything like that there. I mean, people do sometimes go faster than they should down there, but you can do what you want, I guess. There's always people going to be going faster than they're supposed to.
And I would question the success of the ones in Courtney too. I think sometimes the neighbors like it, but people kind of hate it. So, well, yeah, but they, I would question whether they're successful.
CEO, any further comments on that?
The speed sign she's referring to is an advisory sign. It's not a speed limit sign. So it's kind of a cautionary thing to advise people that there's a corner coming up and slow down. I don't believe that we have any traffic that's exceeding the 50-kilometer-an-hour speed limit through there. I think it'd be pretty impossible, actually.
Of course, we've got a trailer behind.
Yes, yes. So, again, it's. I understand that you have traffic coming down a hill, and sometimes, most times, I would think they're exceeding the 15 kilometers an hour. But it's well within the speed parameters that we have.
And we did make some improvements to the alignment of the left turn on.
For the visibility, yes.
Councillor Arnott?
Yeah, at her first paragraph, they're talking about the crosswalk at the bottom of Church Street. I believe it's going to the new building, was that Harbor
Center?
Yeah. Is there a possibility that on the, what are we talking about, on the north side of that, of having a butt out at that curb there to allow traffic not to go around that corner and go over you know, it's got a little bit of a curve there, but for the wheelchairs, it slants down to the road. The cars many times just kind of clip along there. It'd be nice to see a little bit of a bump out there that would feed into a crosswalk that would go across to the other side.
I don't know, that'd be something that we refer to the CO for design.
Yeah, and that's a technical question I would refer to Public Works and Engineering to see if the road is wide enough, if the turning radius is sufficient on that corner, but that would be referred to Public Works.
So we could look at that?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that's across from the grind you're talking about?
Well, the bump out would be at the
In front of the
grind
grind,
corner, in front of the
In
grind.
front of the grind.
Right.
Does that mean the truck that parks outside the grind unloading all of their supplies wouldn't park there anymore?
Oh,
I
that's,
don't know.
The big pickup truck sticks its butt out
It's
into
way
the...
out there, yes.
Anyway, when we get to our capital plan, that'll probably show up somewhere, and we'll have staff here to answer that question. All right, I think we voted on that. did we not? Next letter, unless there's anything further on that, is from the Snow to Surf Society requesting your annual permission to use Marina Park, April 26th.
Move receipt and grant their request.
Grant request, second.
Anything further on that? Hopefully I'll have snow for that. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Snow on the mountain for that.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
There's not much up there. Okay, second one, or next one, sorry, is Craig Tompkins, Wounded Warriors, and again, another event approval, this one on February 17th.
Move receipt and that we grant their request.
Councillor McKenna, anything further?
Just a question on this, I think it's a very admirable thing. Does the staff see any problem with that? You know, this isn't sunny, bright springtime weather, it's February and coming in at that hour. Is there any issues that we should be concerned about for safety?
Well, they'll be responsible for their own safety requirements.
I think it's a great idea, but
Whether they have like an escort, I
they
don't
look
know.
after them.
They're just saying, yeah, you can come through our town.
Yeah.
no concerns, thank you.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. Letter from Mayor Baird, Village of Cumberland, requesting service call from the Economic Development Society. So the motion to receive this would be in order.
Move receipt.
Second?
All those in favor? Motion's carried. There is a process here which will ensue. It involves the regional district and of course CBEDS. When it comes to service withdrawal request, there's a process of discussion, mediation, and if it can't be resolved, ultimately arbitration and a decision by the minister responsible. So at this point, it's early stages yet. I know that the Economic Development Society will be having a board meeting on Friday and they'll be discussing this. I think I can summarize the initial reaction to be one of disappointment and concern. And in terms of thinking regionally and working regionally, this Economic Development Society has had Cumberland and ourselves as participants since at least 1987. And those of you who've been around for that long know it's been up and down process of CBEDS, but generally it's provided lots of good service to the region as a whole. So see Cumberland go their way on this, or attempt to go their own way on this, is a little disturbing to me, but that's just me. That's okay.
Is it a fair assumption that if they were successful in removing that the cost of, for the town of Comox would go up significantly as well?
Well, they don't contribute a whole lot. They contribute $45,000, I think it is, on an annual basis. Interestingly enough, they get about $28,000 back through taxation on the visitor center. So their net right now is only about 17. So, you know, we will have to pick up our share of 45,000 at the very least, and they would still collect their 28. So, you know, that's kind of a little dollars and cents on it, and you know, we'll see where we get to. For this coming budget year, it won't be an impact because it won't happen next year.
Well, and over the years, I think Cumberland's done quite well through the Economic Development Society with a lot of the requests that they have. So it's a little bit, I guess you call it disturbing that they would decide to go their own way because, you know, especially if they take their $45,000 and try to run their own service, that's not a lot of money to run a service. I mean, it's the equivalent of maybe 6 or 7 ads in the Times columns. You get nothing for that kind of money. So I'm not sure what their plans are or how they think that's going to work for them. But, you know, if you look at it from a regional perspective, it's that does bother me too, because the idea of the service is that it's supposed to be good for all, and you're not supposed to be looking insular like they seem to be on this letter, so.
Councilor Marquardt.
I'd only like to say how very disappointing it is.
Yeah, it is, and we'll see what the outcome is. They certainly have put the request forward. And I do understand some of the concerns, but I'd rather see them work within the system than work from outside of it.
And I think the biggest challenge for CVEDs would be how do you promote a region, Comox Valley, and not include one of the communities there?
Especially when the visitor center's right there.
Yes.
Do you say delete their name from all the literature?
Well, we promote through economic development all the external tourism marketing, right?
Yes, and I think that will still go on because
Hard to
we
break them
are
out
a
of it.
community. Yes.
And that would be, again, something that would be discussed, mediated, perhaps arbitrated. And it goes contrary to best practices, which are to work regionally, not just within a place like Comox Valley, but even throughout the whole island on economic development, and not to work on very small elements of it. I know that, for example, the reference they've made to ecotourism, that is promoted heavily at the visitor center and through external marketing pieces. So, the quality of life aspect is something we all share. And as far as other things they want to pursue, well, those are things that are on the work plan already. So.
Is there a place for, it's easy to be disappointed, and we all are, but is there a place for any bridge building for members of council here and our town?
Yeah, the first I heard about it was last week when I was down at the LGLA forum, and Mayor Barrett said, "Oh, did you get my letter?" And I said, "No," and she told me about it. I said, "Well, it's very disappointing, and hopefully we'll work through this." CVEDs will continue to have a Cumberland rep on it, and so there'll be discussion as early as this Friday about this letter, and to see where this is, we can kind of see where it's coming from, but to try to impress on them. We'll be reviewing the work plan and the strat plan and everything else there, so it'll take some time to work through, and we'll have to keep focusing on the big picture.
My point is, they, like us, have a new council, and sometimes there's no opportunities to speak. And
you sit on the Maple Lake Committee, right? So
the
Maple Lake Committee is something that Cumberland's pursuing, and we've sent you there to be a liaison, and it kind of flies in the face of regional thinking.
I'm sure there's connections all around the table with people.
Yeah, library boards, regional district, community justice. We're all sitting on those boards with reps for Cumberland.
Sure. Well, and another interesting thing is, you mentioned that they collect taxes on the Discovery Center out there. Most communities would have that a tax-exempt building, and Cumberland chose not to do that. So not only do they pay, but then they get that $17,000 back. It was fully expected that would be tax-exempt, so gives you a little bit of background to it, at least.
Fair enough. Okay, so we just moved to receive that, and do we vote on that?
No.
All those in favor? Thank you. And last but not least, the BIA has written to us to initiate the renewal of the mandate for the BIA, and I know staff will bring that forward for discussion next week.
So just receive on this? Move receive.
Second.
And just draw your attention to that they're not asking for an increase in the middle paragraph there. It tells about their objectives and their noble objectives.
Great. So we'll discuss it further next week at committee of the whole. So all those in favor receive this letter. Motion's carried. All right, we have no other items before us other than reports from members of council. So I'll start. I had an opportunity to have a dinner with various representatives of the provincial nominee program, as well as some of the local businesses involved with that. It was a prelude to the CVED's Tech event up at North Island College, which involved Minister Andrew Wilkinson, and signing of an MOU on the 23rd of January with Innovation Island, CVEDs, and the North Island College. And there's an event coming up sometime in the next week or two following up on that, so you'll see that in your mail if you're willing, wishing to participate. And the only other things I'll mention are the fire chief and I were invited to attend the morning of January 27th at the Gagway Academy, which is at the Old Brooklyn School. And there we received the prayers and blessings of the school grade 1 and 2 class. I got some letters here if you want to look at them. And the fire chief and I were honored to do so. And I think the fire chief said something about, well, if they were going to be praying for him, he'd be there all week. But I said we only had half an hour. So. But they were very kind to us, and they had lots of questions about, of all things, smoke alarms. So the fire chief used that opportunity to talk to the kids about the importance of smoke alarms, and it's not just a sign that dinner's ready. So anyway.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. And I'll mention the LGLA. I know a number of us were there, the newly elected and returning elected sessions down at Parksville. Of note, George Abbott spoke, former cabinet minister, on the challenges of being elected official, and it was quite refreshing as a returning elected, as well as I'm sure for the newly elected officials to hear his presentation. Also heard from Gordon McIntosh on strategic planning. He's always very good in his presentation. And the other one I'll mention is the always entertaining presentation on municipal finance by Jerry Berry, former Nanaimo finance director, and he has a real interesting angle on it and talks about some of the challenges with funding infrastructure and how development certain types pays and others don't. So the challenges are there, and I think everyone got their eyes open for sure. We'll go with Councillor Margaret.
Oh, thank you. First, I'd like to, on behalf of the seniors, thank Shelley. I made a request that they be included in our webpage, and very quickly that happened. So on behalf of them, thank you, Shelley. Also, I had the pleasure of visiting the museum. Yes, serving as Barbara's alternate while she was away. And I think probably the most important thing for that meeting was Heritage Week, which is coming up on February 15th to the 22nd. There's also going to be a walk, I'm sure we're all aware, a walk from Cumberland through to Comox Mall. And we're all gathering at the Comox Mall in front of the museum there in celebration of the 50th anniversary for our Canadian flag, which is an important one for everyone to remember. Also, I went to my first library board meeting in Nanaimo, and for those who have attended that, that was an experience. Very well organized. Oh, I hate to admit, I haven't attended libraries a lot. My children and grandchildren, yes, but not me. So knowing what's going on in that world was impressive. It was good.
Did you get hushed when you tried to talk?
Well, that was the password.
You've obviously been down there. And one last thing, with regard to the LGLA, our mayor forgot to mention that he sat on the panel.
Oh, right.
And did an excellent job. And we were most impressed and proud of you, sir.
A grizzled veteran, yes.
Yes. That's it, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ken.
Good. We both have touched on a couple of things, so we'll revisit that. Emerging Technologies Forum, I will say, was very instructive for different programs and businesses and opportunities on the island and what have you, and a very worthwhile thing to attend. Besides celebrating Robbie Burns Day, the elected officials seminar, some of the sessions that weren't mentioned, there was a legal clinic for councillors and mayors, municipal and regional districts differences, local government and First Nations working together, very impressive session. A session on citizen engagement, which was very worthwhile and relevant to many of us. And I'm sorry the media is not here today because the last session was communications and the media. I was going to tease them here today, but some very good pointers and very relevant in our business as well. I also had an opportunity to meet with Diana Hawkins of Chamber of Commerce there for the discussion, and that is my report at this time.
Great, thank you. Councillor Price.
Well, I had the opportunity to look at wetland protection in Mexico and realised how, even though we have problems with our water system, there are worse problems. In Cabo, they have such shortage of water that the water's you get 1 day and you fill everything. No, I think it's 1 day every 2 weeks. And you can just go mad and do everything, and then you fill up the tanks and you live on that. And so it does give you an insight into how you can get into some very difficult situations if you don't think ahead. Fortunately, we do think ahead. The highlights, I think, for me have been the regional district with the water committee and the sewer commission, that and the budgeting process too, and the challenges that we are looking at. With the water, we did have Charmaine Enns yesterday, and basically she was saying that the deferral of filtration was no longer on the table. So definitely looking at how we can get filtration and whether that would include ultraviolet. And it also seems that going to the lake is a safer choice for water. And with sewer, we all know about the looking for the site for the Comox No. 2 pump station and the challenges. So I know a lot more about pump stations and how they all interreact, and yeah, but that's and also not just dealing with the pump station, but the upgrades that will be needed to the treatment plants and the Greenwood connection. So there is a lot of expenses on the horizon in the infrastructure.
Yeah, and that's why our water and sewer rates have been bumped up to factor those in for sure. All right, great, thank you. Councillor Swift?
Well, I attended the Leadership Academy last week, and I don't think I can add anything more, but just to say I really enjoyed it. I always find those sessions really great and high energy and lots of information to think about afterwards. And it's always a great learning experience. I also attended the Sewer Commission yesterday, and just let everybody know, I think we were successful in removing our parks from possible locations and siting of the pump stations. So taking out McDonald Wood, Baybrook, Delbert, all those ones have been set aside at this time. So the search is continuing, at least in the interim. And the citizens, there was a presentation by the Portal Beach citizens, and they have identified some sites that they'd like staff to consider, so staff will consider them, and I guess we will hear back. Our next meeting is February 17th.
All right. Great, thank you. Councillor Arnott?
Well, I just like to throw a plug to the Director of Finance, Don Duquesne, for that Finance 101 that many of us attended, and I think a lot forgot, but it was very good. A couple hours worth of finances, according to Don, and thank you very much.
Using his glory.
He speaks like he writes.
Yeah, that's right. So I also attended a couple of regional district meetings, and one of the meetings was a budget meeting. They're proposing about a $12 increase to their requisition, not including the water and sewer. We haven't really gotten into the budget yet, so I'm hoping that we won't be burdened with that much, because there'll be many others.
Is that $12 per thousand, or is that what?
Yeah, on the average, average home, yeah. So also attended the sewer commission meeting, and Maureen mentioned that, and so did Barbara. But one of the things that we've done is we're trying to put together a little working group with them so that they can meet with the RD staff and get some of the parameters and the costs of changing. They brought us some ideas, and elevation becomes a big issue. And as you go higher, the cost gets higher. And without knowing the sites, it could be millions of dollars more, or it could not be. So I think that what we need to do is get their group on the same page as the RD staff, and so that's in the works.
Ken, were those sites in the regional district, or in the town of Comox, or in the city of Courtenay, or
they would all be
suggested sites?
None would be in the city of Courtenay. They all have to be between the Jane Place, basically between Jane Place and the Spit. So that's why it focuses on Prudhoe Beach so heavily. They wanted it to be in the town of Comox because it's our problem, in their opinion, and so we should have it. We decided that we would look at any sites that would fit the bill. Within that working group, they will be putting a time frame on this because we do have an imminent problem out there that has to be solved, and we can't just keep running this out forever. So that's all part of it, but I think there's a big education piece for them when they sit down with the engineers at the RD to find out what some of those criteria could be. You talked about the water filtration problems that we had. So the RD is also hiring a consultant to give us the best ways to go. You talked about possible UV, but it looks more and more like filtration will probably be an issue. We then had a report regarding the boil water advisory. One of the problems we had was we had an extremely dry summer, coupled with an extremely wet fall. The rain that fell in the mountains up there was about 325 millimeters in a few days, and in town it was 140, so more than double the rain fell in the mountains than did down here. Perseverance Creek was compromised during that, and a huge piece of the bank slipped into the creek and caused the clay to pour into the lake. The RD Timber West and the Watershed Advisory Committee are all investigating the reasons for why that happened and what the cause is. The other thing that came out of it was the rules for boil water advisories have changed, and they've become much stricter over the last couple of years. If we do have to go to a filtration plant, the cost could be anywhere from $50 to $70 million, and it could take up to 5 years to build. So we don't want to be going through these boil water advisories all the time if we don't have to. So we've asked VHA to kind of relook at their testing models and see if there's some way that we could be a little less stringent, seeing as how we just changed them, so that if we do have to go to this new model, we won't be stuck with boil water advisories every time it rains out there. So that was that. And the last one was the North Island Hospital Project Liaison Committee.
Oh, yes,
That's a mouthful, yeah. I went on behalf of the mayor, and what we got out of that after a lot of talking is they're doing a great job up there, and it is on time and on budget.
Excellent.
So there we go.
I'll start off.
I just have a question to, well, Councillor Grant and Councillor McKinnon. With the boil water advisory, have we heard any numbers come back that how it affected the businesses for having bottled water and what kind of impacts this had on them for 7 weeks?
We didn't get any numbers on that, although it was brought up several times at the RD meeting, and VHA, well, Dr. Anns she's quite aware that that's an issue, but they had to use caution in this case because they didn't know what was in the water. Had they known more about what was in the water, they may have been able to lift it sooner or not put it on, but when you don't know, you have to take the precautionary routes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure anecdotally there were lots of things that we heard. I mean, I even heard it at the school. We got there, the receptionist at the school said, "Oh, when are we going to get our money back for providing bottled water to kids?" Well, you know, I guess I don't know where the responsibility ends for those kinds of things, but to be, and I said, well, it's public health and safety. We have to.
Yeah.
And Dr. Enns too talked about E. coli is not the bad thing, it's bad, but it's not the worst thing, it's the pathogens that is a real problem, you know, the viruses, and they can last a lot longer. So if we can get a handle on what is the content in the water, we measure E. coli, but pathogens are more expensive to measure and harder. But testing, the regional district is starting that testing now. So that will help fine-tune when we go to, you know, if we have to do that, because as Director Grant said, we're looking at 5 years down the road, and to have this long a boil water order was quite catastrophic to a lot of people.
Well, especially when you consider areas south of us here have higher turbidity levels than what I understand, and didn't have to boil water at all.
Yes, but the explanation for that too was that because they knew what was in the water, they could have a higher turbidity level. The fact that we don't know what it is makes them go with the angle of caution. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's all very good information. Thank you for bringing that back to us. More to follow as we go along with water, sewer, and other issues. All right, so that's our report. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move.
Those in favor? Motion's carried. We have a public hearing in 20 minutes next door. It's here.